we immediately went to the number one auction house. It really was not a hard decision to do the archive because I understood that having it be a vital resource, a very valuable resource,
sure,
would give us incredible brand awareness and mind share in the field. And the minute we launched, it was obvious that it was a great choice because we immediately went to the number one auction house.
Was it a lot of work? How much time did it take to develop the technology, develop the website, and all the bells and whistles that you wanted?
It doesn't seem like it was that long. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think it was more than a few months.
Wow.
Back then, it was a pretty simple website, really.
Sure.
But it just had so much data on it, and it was so useful, just to have all that pricing information going back
sorted
quite a few years and searchable.
Wow.
And of course, we've continued to improve it.
How many items are? That's like 3 million. How many items are in there?
I think it might be closer to 6.
Wow, that's phenomenal. It's a lot of research, a lot of data there, a lot of great data points. So you said a pretty strong comment. I didn't realize how fast it happened, which is you went to number one overnight, pretty much.
Almost overnight.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And so now you're at this next level now with the company. And so this is like, what year is this now?
99?
99. Wow. Okay, 99. Wow.
Maybe 98.
Okay. So now we're rocking and rolling. You're number one. Are you paranoid, or you think something could go wrong? Because you've had some the experiences with New England and the market correction. Is it stuff keeping you up at night? Because you're thriving.
There's always something that keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. Well, Steve is much more even keel than I am. So he doesn't really ever lose sleep over anything. But I'm probably not that way. I'm a little more high strung.
Gotcha.
And so I obsess, and worry about everything. And mostly about other people. I don't ever want to have to do layoffs again, that kind of thing. Now I obsess about what's going to happen to Heritage after Steve and I are gone, and I think we have a really good succession plan, but it could be better, and I can't stand that it could be better.
Sure,
we haven't done it yet, that kind of thing.
Of course.
So,
because a lot of your successes are really going to be ultimately judged by how your successors to carry it,
right.
Which is interesting. Now I feel like you've laid the foundation. You have an amazing infrastructure. You're number one, and all this has laid the foundation to go into other collectibles.
Yes.
Sports memorabilia, art, books, whatever it may be. When did those? Tell me about that transition. Like, hey, Steve, we're going to do something besides coins now. You okay with that?
We did acquire Currency Auctions of America from Len Glazer and Alan Mincho, and they were supposed to, as part of the deal, this was in 2000, I think, and they were the number 2 auction company after Lynn Knight, and immediately became the number 1 currency auction company after they had access to our web platform.
Sure.
And they were supposed to work for us for, I think, 3 years, and they wound up staying for 20.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, it was obvious that was a success right away. And so I was a comic book collector. I had been a comic book collector since the early 90s, comics and comic art. And I said to Steve, why don't we do a comic book auction? Just to see, because competing in the coin auction business is really hard. And these other categories are underserved, and maybe we could do the same thing. And he said, no, we don't know. We don't know anything about comics, and those guys would eat us for lunch. And,
But you had the best infrastructure to handle it.
We did.
Yeah,
And so finally I said, okay, how about if I can sign $500,000 worth of comics from my own collection, so we can't possibly lose money.
Mm-hmm.
Then will you let me run one lousy
You take the
comic
hit.
auction?
Yeah, you take the hit if it doesn't work out.
Right. And he said, okay.
Yeah, right. What year was this?
The end of 2001, November 2001. Okay. And I also got a friend of mine, actually my older son's best friend's dad, was a movie poster collector, and had a grueling job in the movie business where he'd be away from his family for 3 months a year and work 12-hour days. And so I said, why don't you see if you can put together a little movie poster section to put it at the end of our comic book auction, and we'll see if we can turn that into a business. And he did. And we did this first auction and did $960,000. It was profitable. That included the movie posters. Now, Christie's and Sotheby's were our only competitors at that time. And the biggest auction that either of them had ever done was $2.1 million. They averaged between the two of them maybe a couple $1 million a year, maybe $3 million a year between the two of them every year in these comic auctions. Christie's was run by a guy named Jerry Wiest. Their department was, and Joe and Nadia Manarino. No, Christie's was run by Joe and Nadia Manarino, and Sotheby's department was run by Jerry Wiest. Sure. And they were friends of mine, all of them, but they didn't really give me any information about it. But we were friendly, and so we ran our first auction, and it was pretty good. And people liked it, which was more important. So we had a second auction. And the second auction did $2.2 million. Broke the record.
Wow. It's starting to rock and roll.
Right.
Yeah.
3 months later, we had another auction that did $5 million.
Wow. And you guys just must be looking at each other. I guess we were right on this, huh?
And we got Stan Lee's collection for that one.
Right.
And we got Nicolas Cage's collection for the fourth auction, and that one brought $5.2 million. So we did $15 million our first calendar year, which was 5 times what Christie's and Sotheby's together were doing per year. Wow! And they immediately left the business.
Wow! Put them right out of business just like that within 1 year.
Yep.
Wow! So comic books was really the first major move outside of coins and paper money.
It was.
Of other collectibles.
It was.
And then how did it expand from comic books? What else? Was it just the movie? Did everything else?
Steve's son, Chris, worked at a grading service called SGC, which was the number 2 grading service for after PSA. PSA was way ahead of them. PSA was much bigger. Yeah. And Chris, knew a lot about sports. And Steve wanted him to move back to Dallas. Sure. Of course, like any father would want his son around. Sure. And so he said, well, you took a chance on comics. How about we let Chris run a sports division and I'll guarantee no loss? And I said, yeah.
That's funny.
Just like he said.
Sure.
And so he did, and Chris turned out to be brilliant at it. That's cool. It didn't succeed nearly as fast as comics did, but Chris has amazing people skills. Very, very logical guy. Super likable, super ethical. So everybody trusts him. And he was able to recruit a dream team. Everybody wanted to work for him or with him. And we got our pick. I mean, we got the greatest experts. Yeah. And just built this amazing, amazing team under Chris.
I have to tell you, Jim, so, I've been a collector since I was 4, jumped on planes to go to A&A shows, but took over Witter Coin in 2016. And every day I would learn something, just how big Heritage is. It's phenomenal. And, it's the 800-pound gorilla, which is pros and cons, and we can get into that.
Sure.
But Todd Inhofe arranged for me to visit Heritage about a year ago, and I took the full tour in the old offices. And I figured it out right away. You have phenomenal people that are amazingly passionate. Like when you go to the comic book department and I chatted, I was like, wow, they're just like me. They're just in the comic books. The people in the book department, it was phenomenal. And I was like, wow, that's the secret sauce. Because I'm running a coin business. You're 10,000 times bigger than me. But, I'm always paying attention, studying, seeing what's going on. But when I did that tour, I was like, their hearts are all into it. It's the people. The people is definitely what makes the company by far.
Yeah.
So,
and believe me, it's not perfect. I mean, when you run a company with 600 people, you can't. You need a lot of checks and balances in place. Things happen slowly, slower than in a small company. There's a lot of red tape. Plenty of errors and plenty of snafus. But we fix the problem.
Sure. So what do you do day to day? On an average day, what do you do?
Well, I spend most of the day on Teams, which is like Zoom meetings, and email.
Gotcha. Okay. Just like you're tackling problems, you're talking about consignments,
I'm putting out fires. I'm talking to clients. I'm helping close deals. Deciding whether to do deals or not, because we don't want to do any deals that aren't win-win. Number one, both sides have to win, and it have to be sustainable. We don't want to do anything short term. So we turn down a lot of business. As a result of that, because. And sometimes not because it isn't good for us, but because we don't think it's good for the client.
Sure. Yeah, I hear you. It's good. It gets back to this foundation that you had back when you were a young kid. It's important. Let's talk some coins.
Okay.
All right. What kind of coins do you love? What kind of coins are you into?
I don't care about coins.
What do you mean? All you did was coins.
No, I never collected them.
Never.
No, I was a complete mercenary, and I know that sounds bad. But
buy coin for X and sell
coins were a means to an end for me.
Sure.
And that's very unusual, and I hate even admitting it, because I know that, all these numismatists, and I'm not saying I don't enjoy the study of coins, because I do. I enjoy learning about coins. But I don't really have any desire to own a great coin collection. I guess I want to say my passion, my collecting passion is comic books and comic art.
Really? Okay, gotcha.
Because I was a comic dealer and a comic fan way before I was a coin dealer.
Sure.
I published 8 fanzines, comic book fanzines, in the mid '60s when I was 11 and 12 years old, and bought and sold comic books in ads in the back, which I still have. I still have copies of them.
That's cool.
I used to have dinner with Stanley a few times a year when I was in California.
Oh, that's really cool.
After we sold his comic collection, and I always used to tell him that he taught me how to read, because I wasn't much of a reader until I discovered comic books.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's my collecting passion.
Yeah. So, at this stage, do you have most of everything, or are you still? I guess I can't ask you what are you looking to acquire, because all of a sudden the value of that item goes up. They're going to hold you hostage. But what's your favorite comic book that you have in your collection? Which one do you really like?
Well, I have comic book art that I really like, and I mainly like EC comic books, which was pre-1955. Maybe the greatest of the golden age comics were made by EC. They had the best artists, the best story writers. They all had twists at the end, very novel-esque.
It's deep for you. You could tell. Just by your body language, you've been collecting it and you're passionate about it. That's cool. It's very cool.
And Mad Magazine was a big part of my childhood also.
Really? I remember that too.
And I consider Mad Magazine one of the most important influences of our entire generation.
Really?
Taught an entire generation of baby boomers how to think critically, how to be skeptical of Madison Avenue, politicians, anti-cigarette,
That's right.
You know,
right.
very high on social justice, teaching through humor.
Right. That's good points. Very good points.
I think the world would be in a very different place without it.
That's very interesting perspective. Mad Magazine. That's
Yeah.
cool. Very interesting. So your comics, comic art, coins, you're obviously very passionate about comics, but generally speaking, you know, there's a lot of different types of collectibles on your platform. Is there advice that you could give to collectors that are newer, maybe more intermediate, that are trying to figure it out? Like, what's some general advice that you would give to collectors on how to approach things?
Well, you know, you can learn an awful lot in our archive if you're interested enough.
Sure.
And we have no intention of ever charging for it. You know, any member of HA.com has free lifetime access to our archive, and believe me, we could charge a lot of money for it.
It's good information, no doubt.
And I would say that, you know, it's an easy way to learn. I think David Hall used to have very good advice to coin collectors, which is always sell a few things. You know, sell a few things just to see what happens.
So you learn the market,
You'll learn a lot by doing that.
It also seems like a lot of good advice is buy the best that you could afford, the best condition that you can afford. Because we're all on budgets, whether you have $1 billion to spend or, you know, $100 to spend, buy the best that you can afford.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that gives you an edge.
Yeah.
But buy the book first. You know, not necessarily the book, but do the research first.
Go on the internet first now. That used to be the old saying, right? Buy the book before the coin.
Right. Now you just research it on the internet.
Yeah, it's much different these days.
Learn as much as you can before you start spending your money, or at least money that matters.
Sure. So,
and buy what you love. Buy what you love, because you'll learn more. And not every purchase that you're going to make in collectibles is going to work out.
Right.
You know, some markets get hot and cold, just like individual stocks.
Sure. Yeah.
But over time, you'll learn more about values. You'll learn more about what makes the market tick, and you'll develop a better temperament for doing well with those assets.
And also, what I notice is interesting is your tastes evolve over time too. You know.
Well, like everyone's taste.
Yeah,
and the market's tastes evolve over time as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch how a collector. You know, we all make mistakes in the beginning, and that's why I think a good lesson is what you pointed out: to sell a coin. You know, you can see if you overpaid for it, you'll kind of understand the market, but it makes you a better collector, makes you choose more wisely, I think.
And it makes you understand the cost of friction.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can take that into account.
Yeah, for sure.
But collectibles are certainly developing into an asset class. But there's risk in that.
Sure.
And there will be market peaks and valleys, just like anything else. And individual items will outperform or underperform other individual items, just like individual stocks.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about social media and collectibles, coins.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts? It's pretty phenomenal how quickly these things are growing. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube has been around for a long time. You know, I myself have gotten a lot of exposure just by having fun, you know, hitting record, not editing it and putting it up, just telling people what I think or showcasing cool coins that I just love. It seems to be a way to really connect with people.
It does.
And it's like more than like an instructional tutorial. People actually, I understand the word follow. They kind of follow what you're doing. Yeah. So this is coming from the guy that started out all in on the internet. Yeah. So what's your thoughts and ideas about social media and coins?
Well, I'm not very good at social media. And I don't really spend a lot of time on it anymore because it was very time consuming. Right. And, you know, I like doing more one-on-one kind of meetings with people.
Sure.
You know, and I like running our business, and if I did a lot of social media, I wouldn't have time to do that.
Sure, I hear you.
And I just don't think that I have the personality for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I understand the appeal quite a bit. I invest in those companies. I have, you know, Facebook stock and other social media company stocks, and I've I'm bullish on them.
Right.
Certainly they have regulatory issues that they're going to have to deal with, but they're not going away.
Yeah, they're not. They're growing fast.
But I don't get that involved in our social media initiatives just because I think our platform is more my speed.
Sure, I hear you. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, one of the things why I've embraced it is a few things. Is it's very easy. You know, the technology just to record a video. You know, now with technology with the new, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the quality is phenomenal.
It is.
So it's like you could take a video of a coin for 10 or 30 seconds and really get a good feel for how that coin looks in hand versus images. All the great images are awesome, but high quality video image is phenomenal. So it's interesting to I could share with a lot of people instantly, the coin that I have in my hand. And, people sometimes ask me, do you have a lot of time for that? I'm like, well, it's not me. The social media, the tools have been designed where we are now in 2021 that you have an iPhone and the way Instagram works or YouTube works, it's all instant. People pay attention. That's the thing that I've shocked about, whether it's, coin dealers, coin collectors, or collectors of other fields, they're really paying attention. And so one thing that excites me and probably made me feel more responsible and more accountable is there's a lot of young numismatists out there on social media. So it's a great way to connect to them. Because, they're home now, there's COVID,
Sure.
And there's no coin shows and this and that. And it's like a really great way to connect. And I was just shocked how many young numismatists there are out there from 13 to 21. They're on social media. They're just dying for content. So it's really fascinating. I know, you yourself, you've hired thousands of young numismatists here and had interns over the years. It's an important way for us to really connect.
Yeah. And, I probably should develop that skill, but it might be too late for me.
Yeah, it's just.
And I mean, my kids are on social media all the time, and we have, I think, a great social media team here now. We're just kind of getting started with it, really.
Right.
Most of our demographic is, our bidder demographic tends to be older people,
right.
Not the sports, comics people, but the coin people. Right. And I would really like to change that. But it's a challenge.
It's not easy.
Running all these auctions,
right.
And doing social media other than the kind that's just about the items.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Sure.
And so, I probably should put more attention into what we can do besides just stressing the items, or maybe the stories behind the items.
Right.
But most of our business comes from PR and advertising,
and the website,
and the website, and very little of it from social media at this point as a percentage. Certainly growing percentage.
Well, here's the good news: is that now you're starting, because this is going to be on Instagram and YouTube, maybe even TikTok. We need to have you dancing for like 15 seconds. But
okay,
I just want to say it was great. I really appreciate this. I'm fascinated. I appreciate the tour of your office. It's phenomenal. But taking the time to sit down. I haven't heard your story. That was phenomenal. I know there's going to be tens of thousands of people that are going to watch this. That just enjoy, how you got started, how you ended up where you are. So I really appreciate you being on.
Right. Well, it was great. It was great chatting with you, and I really enjoyed it too.
Cool. Okay.
Maybe I'll wind up doing more of this.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That'd be great. I got about 2,000 more questions for you, but we got to move on.
Okay. Well, next time.
Yeah. Sure. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Seth.
Bye-bye.